Hi, I'm Leslie Meredith with Breakbulk Events and Media here at Breakbulk Europe in Antwerp, and I'm joined by Eduard Gracia from AT Kearney, who has just finished his presentation this morning on Iran and the Middle East. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good. Give us a recap of what you had to say to our audience and what was the most important and what you want people to know.
Okay, first let's acknowledge the basics, which is since July 2014, the oil price has gone down by about 74%. So that means that it has lost close to three-quarters of its value. It has recovered a little bit in the last few months, but basically has lost most of its value at the time. That has two impacts on the economies in the Middle East. Number one is that obviously their finances, the finance of those governments is heavily dependent on oil exports. Therefore, there is going to be more than ever an interest in monetizing the resources that they have because there is a dependency on the oil that they export. The second thing is that at that low price, many of the reservoirs in the world, let's say things in Canada, may have very high cost, and therefore investments in those areas are being discontinued, and capital is being focused in the Middle East. So what you see is logically there's going to be more emphasis on capital investment and upstream in the Middle East, and more interest in the countries in the Middle East to attract that investment. Now, Iran is a especially interesting case because historically, since the revolution, they have always had a dependency on oil, but also on external investment that they were not always able to attract. And during the sanctions that started in 2011, obviously that impacted them even more. So their oil production reduced by 20%, not because they couldn't sell the crude, but because they were lacking the technology and the external investment to keep their fields producing. So therefore, they lost about 800,000 barrels of production during that time. So what you see now, and in fact we have seen that in the last few months, is that as the sanctions are being lifted, their production has been growing up. So in the last month, since mid last year, they may have increased their production by about 400,000 barrels.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now we have more oil coming on the market, right? We already have low oil prices. So what will be the effect of that?
That's an interesting question, and the answer would be this: when the market is very tight, a small change in the supply of oil has a big impact. Now, right now the market is not tight. I mean, there's a glut of oil. So if you think about it, 900,000 barrels of oil would be about 1% of the world's production. So, I mean, when we're talking about increasing 400,000 barrels in the last so many months, that wouldn't have much of an impact on the global oil price. It's not that tight. The other thing to remember here is gas, because Iran is the country that has the second largest gas reserves in the world. However, it's not, it struggles to be an exporter. In fact, for 12 of the last 15 years, they have been a net importer of gas. Why is it so? They don't have any LNG terminals, so they have been working on one, but it's not ready yet. There is only one major pipeline, which is what is known as the Tabriz-Ankara. It goes from Iran to Turkey, and that is their main source of exports, with some small pipelines to Armenia and Azerbaijan. And they have an import pipeline from Turkmenistan that actually, for 12 of those 15 years, was importing more gas into Iran than Iran was able to export, having the second largest reserves in the world. Therefore, there's going to be logically a big push to improve their logistics so that they can export that gas.
Right, and doesn't that represent an opportunity for people in our industry?
I believe so, because there are already projects planning to build pipelines towards Pakistan, towards Iraq, across the Strait of Hormuz towards United Arab Emirates and Oman. But of course, those are projects so far. So they will need help, and they will need to attract foreign investors and technology to get all those things working.
Right, and when that happens, a lot of cargo coming in, right? They'll need a lot of big components.
I would expect so. Both to build it, and obviously once they produce, the LNG in particular obviously will need to be shipped as well. Today they are building this LNG plant, which they have not been able to progress much because of lack of foreign technology. So our expectation is that they might start to become a clearly net exporter of gas, as opposed to where they are now, which is
about when do you think?
Between 2020 and 2030 is when it would happen. So obviously all these projects take a while to come to results, but certainly they wouldn't be in a hugely different position to where they are now by 2020. It's only a few years away. After that, between 2020 and 2030, they would become a clearly net exporter.
Okay, great. That's wonderful information. Very useful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.